Ba-da-dee-da-dee-dee-do-do. Dee-da-dee-dee-do. Da-da-dee-da-dee-dee-dee-da-dee-dee-do. Okay, looks good on my side.
You know that's going to be the intro, right? So, hello. For some reason, you're listening to a podcast about kickboxing, unless you're on mute, in which case you're not. But before kicking things off, I need to make a public apology. Last time I violated one of the central tenets of my faith and said something rude about Taiga. Now, in my defense, I haven't eaten candy for like a month. It's tough. I take this one day at a time, and in a state of M&M deprivation, I said that he sucks. Now, obviously, he's a talented fighter. What I meant was that he would suck as an opponent for tension. And luckily, Ryzen got out their power tools and found a new way to lower the bar. But we're not going to talk about that because I'm joined by my much ruder friend, Path. Path, again, hello. Welcome to the thing.
And we're back.
We are back, actually.
Here for our victory lap.
So the Mr. And we're back. We're going to hear more from him this weekend. But the first order of business we have is to contact surgeons about rib removal because, at least with regards to the Rise card, you were pretty on the money with everything that you said. So Kosei Yamada walked through a river of fouls and middle kicks to defend his belt. Musashi Matsushita looked fantastic. You wanna take a victory lap?
Oh, absolutely. Of the fights we bothered to predict, we literally hit everything perfect. Not even just down to who won, but the round and method as well.
Well, I take issue with this we stuff. I'm not sure that I provided anything here.
Well, I'm trying to share the victory with you, okay? You don't have to be that modest.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you.
So, I mean, yeah, I didn't know much about Naofumi, but he did really well as well. He won his debut. Musashi, as I predicted, just absolutely, it was just 3 rounds of a beating that he put on Ota, just outclassed him.
Yeah, I mean, like I joked that he was going to be a white boy sacrifice, but his sturdiness was pretty impressive. But I mean, shout out to him. But I was kind of worried. Like Musashi, obviously won with the greatest of ease, but also in his corner was the aforementioned Mr. Taiga, and Musashi took some inspiration from him with both his shorts and kind of I wouldn't say he's off balance in the same kind of way that Taiga is, but when he was like just very narrowly evading shots on the outside, like he managed not to go flying through the ropes, but it did give me, kind of heart skipped a beat a few moments. Looked like he's obviously very well put together, and offensively he's pretty amazing, but it was just the kind of thing that made me go, oh, I hope you don't try that against someone who is better than a white guy in Japan.
Better than a white guy in Japan, damn man, that's brutal. That's very breaking your religion there. Anyway, it's I think something to keep in mind about Musashi is, I mean, he is like 16.
Yeah,
and when I say 16, I mean he just turned 16. He was 15, like almost leading up to this fight. So that's something to keep in mind. So he's still going to be raw just because of his age, even though he already has 400 plus fights, which is just insane. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of him training out of a Tryhard gym. I don't have a lot great to say about them, especially like you said with Taiga's flying spaghetti noodle special out the ring every 2 seconds. It's not a habit I want him to pick up. We also All-American Open winner Koto Hiraoka trains there as well, and I don't feel like her, I guess let's call it rise and fall, was handled very well by them because she came in, flying, and then I think she's lost like 4 in a row now.
Yeah, the try hard
so
special.
I don't have great confidence in that gym.
Well, I mean, this is the interesting thing there. Taiga now only trains there once a week, and that seems like a pretty like just to keep the association. But he's actually moved to Team Dragon now, so maybe these youngsters can avoid the The fate of losing 5,000 fights in a row and falling out of the ring every like 30 seconds.
It is a skill. It's almost impressive. But like I said, he's only 16. I think he looked great. I'm not really worried about the defensive stuff you mentioned, just because I think he knew his opponent had no business being in there with him and was sort of going for it way more than I've seen him do in his other fights.
Yeah, I mean, you could see the way that he like threw everything at him, just like endless combos, not really caring about what was coming down the pipe from the other side because it did not
Yeah,
matter
exactly. So I
at
feel like
all.
he was a lot more aggressive than I've seen him in his karate matches and stuff like that. So I I feel like it would kind of, this is a comparison I'll make. I feel like if you watched Hideaki Yamazaki fight Ruku, and then you took away from that, wow, he has no defense at all. He just swings from, the bleachers. I mean, he knew Ruku was no threat. He didn't fight, the ties in K1 the same way. That's all I'm saying is I feel like that was a poor showcase for his defensive capabilities just because he knew he had nothing to worry about.
Yeah, and you're probably right, but I mean the opposite of that is that there are also plenty of examples of Hideaki Yamazaki fighting high level guys and doing exactly the same thing. Uh, but that's why we love him. Anyway, so the other karate guy you mentioned also looked good. Rise continue to pick up karate crossovers. We can talk about that in a bit. There was one more fight that I wanted to talk about. I mean, one, there was this extremely long exhibition that put me to sleep. But two, deep kick champion Kengo beat Daiki Toita in, frankly, a ridiculously stupid fight that I loved and everyone should
That
watch.
was insane. Yeah. How many downs was there?
I
Five?
don't know, like some of them looked like downs and were just called as slips, but like if you look at the highlights of it, it looks like there were probably about seven, but like a few of them were not called. But yeah, the whole thing was just nuts.
Yeah, no, that was a great fight. Definitely a fight of the year contender so far. But yeah, it's very interesting watching these deep kick guys, or let's just say the guys from lesser promotions that sort of come into it with no defense, but the idea is just I finally made it to the air quotes bigger stage, so I'm just gonna swing for the fences because there's no way I'm letting this go.
Well, God bless him for it.
Makes for exciting fights, but short careers.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing that we spoke about last time out was we spent quite a significant amount of time hyping up what we were all really excited for, the Cage Kickboxing Championship 2021. And this long exhibition that put me to sleep. Congratulations to the winner of putting people to sleep, Ryoga Terayama. So I didn't watch the final. I did fall asleep, but he's now 1-1-1 against Cherub Angel Baby Man Showa Ari, all by pretty close decisions. Did you watch the final?
Not at the time. I went to bed in protest, but I did catch it after the fact.
Okay, and is it a Terayama special, or did he deserve the win?
He did not deserve the win.
Okay, well, I mean, that's all I really needed to know. Like, we've seen him go at it a couple times now, and Terayama is not a bad fighter. He's not, terribly exciting, but he's also, 16, 17. He's talented, but if they plan to push him into the tension role in the next 6 months and act like winning this tournament was his equivalent of the Blade tournament, he's gonna have real problems. He's got work to do, and the thumbs on the scale of judging sometimes in these promotions is not gonna help him if he has to fight a guy at 55 kg, for example, like Masahiko Suzuki. So, like, please don't rush the kid. Let him develop, but also let him fight on his own, not with three extra guys outside of the ring with pencils on his side.
You said that they might try to push him like the next Tension. Man, I wouldn't even consider him like a Alibaba Express version of Tension. The kid's awful.
I don't think he's that bad, but he's really not entertaining.
I'm serious. He's awful. I totally disagree. I know some people on the timeline too think that he's good, just boring. I don't think so. I think if you actually add up the amount of times he got a decision that he didn't deserve, he would probably be negative at this point. He'd be batting 500 at the least. I will say that a couple people on the timeline, including Luke, thought that he did win after the first 3 rounds, but then it went to an extension and he definitely lost that. Ari beat his ass and then he got the decision. So I will put that out there just so it's out there that many people did think that he won the first 3. This is how I come at it. I come at it a little bit differently. When I watched him fight Tabuchi in the second round of the tournament, and it went all 3 rounds, then they gave it to Terayama. I thought, okay. And then when I watched him fight Ari, what I'm trying to say is like they gave it an extension round in the final. I don't know if maybe they weren't allowed to give extension rounds earlier on in the tournament, but if that was an extension round, then certainly Tabuchi should have gotten extension. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like he got it in his favor, kind of. Like to me, it should have been an extension round with him and Tabuchi. If the finals with Ari if that counted as an extension, then certainly Tabuchi should have got one as well. So I feel like he got favorable judging like the whole way through the tournament.
It's very shocking to me that there is a tournament and after the fact we are not talking about the fights, we are talking about judging and officiating, and it's what a surprise. This never happens. What a rare occasion. It's just a shame that this reared its head at this really unforeseeable time.
Yeah, I thought I'd throw it out there that other people didn't have a problem with the decision until the extension, but I actually thought the opposite. I thought it should have been an extension when he fought Tabuchi because basically nothing happened that fight. They both did pretty much nothing. I think there was like 2 clean shots landed the whole match, so I thought surely this is an extension. You can't possibly say either of them did enough to win this, and they gave it to Terayama. And then in the Showa Ari fight, I thought Ari edged it, but then they gave it an extension. I thought that's not at all objectionable. That's fine. I don't understand why Tabuchi didn't get an extension. Maybe that was something in the rules. Only the final could have an extension. I don't know. If that's the case, it makes a little more sense.
It's possible, but I think some of the stuff around like rules and who exactly was putting this stuff on was all a bit kind of murky.
Yeah, they probably should have clarified that in the beginning, but I'm just operating under the assumption that they could have given extensions if they wanted to, because some judges did rule draws. So I'm assuming if it's a one-night tournament and they're ruling draws or even cards, that means extensions are possible even before the final. So, and then when he won in the extension where he clearly lost against Ari, even after the extension, I thought, wow, what a joke. I made a joke about it on the last podcast that, oh man, Terayama's in, so that's it. He's going to win. Why are we even talking about this? But then we noted that it's Shuto and the Shin Karate organization. So hopefully Rise wouldn't have its paws on it. But it seems like everyone's invested in keeping this kid going along who has nothing but a middle kick and a baby face.
I mean, he has a baby face if your baby has been stung by bees.
I don't know. It rubbed me the wrong way.
He's got kind of an odd expression on his face all the time. Like, he doesn't look like he enjoys kickboxing.
No. It might be a situation where, the family seems to be into it, so maybe it was just kind of forced on him, but you never know with these kind of things. I tuned in until Tabuchi lost to him and then tuned out, but I did watch the fights later once you told me we were going to be talking about it on the podcast. The only other thing I'd mention is almost all the fights, and I suppose it's not that uncommon in a tournament like this, that they were all fighting very reserved. Like all the fights, everybody fought super reserved. Not a lot of action in any of these fights.
Showa, his semifinal, I think he kind of opened up toward the end, but this brings up one of the really important things here. The prize money for this, for fighting
exactly
3
where
fights
I was going
in
with
one
it.
night.
Yep.
Yeah, $9,000. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I don't know, man. I completely understand nobody really going for it. I wouldn't go for it for, $3,000 a fight if you win all of them, and then what? You got your your gym and your trainer taking a cut. Like, what do you got at the end of that? Just drive an Uber.
No, exactly. That's exactly where I was going with that. Is it didn't make sense to me because they really hyped this up like an important tournament. It's backed by a bunch of different sponsors. So I thought the prize money would be half decent. So when I was seeing them fighting so reserved, I thought, wow, like this is a 3 fight in one night tournament with a lot of the best people in your weight class. I would have thought Omori and Ari would really go after it more. But like you said, once we saw the big prize at the end of it, and you can imagine the people who didn't win got even less, probably like much, much less.
Yeah.
You realize why none of them were going for it. $9,000 for 3 fights. They probably make more on a regular Rise card.
Yeah. So, I would advise everybody to still keep your eyes on Ari and Omori, but like my God, that is. I mean, this brings up the other thing that I wanted to talk about. Like when everybody else in the field was cutting weight, Tabuchi was fighting in karate tournaments. So I really need to understand what the hell is going on here, and I have questions for you. I don't know if you can answer them, but like, how did he? I mean, you told me that he got like dropped in one of his karate fights while everyone else is, laying off the sparring for a week, just focusing on their weight. Like, what is going on here? Do you think?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I think this deserves to be put in its proper context. So Tabuchi, I think it's Kensei Juku. I apologize if I'm getting the name wrong. It's one of the 10 million, sub karate organizations, kind of like the Asahisa one, where it's just the patriarch kind of in charge of his own dojo and set up his own organization. So the Tabuchis fall under one of these, and they pretty much go from tournament to tournament, fighting in every single one that'll let them. And I mentioned in the last podcast that they had fought in the JFKO All Japan. They'd fought in a Daido Juku type tournament. They fought, was it Suzuki he fought in Rise? Forgive me, the name escapes me. He fought someone in Rise not that long ago as well. I can't even keep track of it. He's fought so many people.
Yeah.
And
I
then
have no idea either.
Yeah, he fought in the Zendo Kai, which is another smaller org. Zendo Kai full contact. It was bare knuckle, not with gloves, tournament. I think it was like 6 days before this tournament, and he won. He won, and then he fought in another one that I forget where he got third place. But he fought in two full contact bare knuckle tournaments. I think 2 weeks out combined.
I mean, like, I'm pretty blind to this stuff. Like, what is the structure like? Do you pay to enter? Is there a prize pool? Is it like are they doing this because, I know they do pretty well in these like smaller regional tournaments, but like missing out on a potential $9,000 payday if you can get like a few other prizes, that makes sense to me. But like, do they get paid? Is this just to advertise the school? Like, what's going on?
That's a very good question. It doesn't make sense to me. I actually think it's borderline abusive. I have to say that, even if that will get me in trouble with some people. I think it's ridiculous how much the Tabuchis fight. It's almost bi-weekly at this point.
Yeah, so like his sister has a fight this weekend with Rise, and she's been fighting this week also, right?
Yes, she fought in the Zendo Kai tournament as well. I think she placed third, if I remember correctly. I can't, like, it's so insane. I'm the karate guy, and I can't even keep track of all their placements. And it's something I didn't notice it until you pointed it out, but it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you fight in a bare knuckle tournament a week before you got to fight in kickboxing, like, people just don't understand. When you've got a glove, you can get away with a lot of stupid shit. You can get away with a lot of terrible form and stupid shit. But when you're bare knuckle, you can't. You throw a hook at the liver and they block it and you take it on their elbow. That is like your middle knuckle just slamming dead into the point of their elbow. Your hand gets hurt even if you win. It requires much more precision with the hands to not hurt yourself. And you pointed it out that he was shaking his hand out like crazy during the kick tournament.
Yeah, he was shaking his hand out all the time. But like even the defense and like there's an outsider perspective, and I am an outsider definitely, that karate, because you don't punch the face, is somehow easier or gentler on the body. But that's an insane proposition, because like how many people have actually done the 100-man kumite? And I know that's kind of a weird extreme to like go to from there, but if this was really easy, then all of these like kickboxers in the 90s and early 2000s would have had that under their belt, and a lot of them did not. It is like I don't understand what this family is doing, but you can chart his performances in Rise, and he's just sort of gradually doing less and less, but fighting more and more. And if you're there as a billboard for your karate school, that's fine, but you got to be able to take a time off when you're getting kicked in the head and dropped, the week of multiple fights in kickboxing.
Yeah, he actually got dropped with a knee, a step-up knee that kind of caught him by surprise because the guy was taller than him. But he did get up and managed to win that match. But it definitely stuck out to me, like, what the fuck is he doing fighting again? And there's some pretty disturbing videos of them sparring, let's just say, on that page for that organization, with the instructors yelling all kinds of pretty horrific insults at them. I get the feeling something not great is going on there, because I know you're sort of looking for me as the guy in the karate world to explain the logic to you, and the truth is I can't. So I'll just take Hajime Kazumi, who, if you follow my timeline, I cover all the time. He was like famous for, he finished 100-man and he'd push his body to the brink, but he would skip the weight tournaments. You'll notice he never had a weight title in the All Japan, because he would skip it because it's an unimportant tournament to save his body for the All Japan Open. And that's typically what happens. Yuta Takahashi, another top level guy, he'd do the weight tournaments when he was younger and then kind of phased off them when he was focusing on the Opens, and he'd only do one or two really important tournaments a year. To do every single one from like 12 different organizations and be fighting like 4 times a month, it doesn't make sense. Most of these tournaments don't pay. Karate is mostly amateur. You get paid by making a name for yourself and then teaching or being given a branch position, like I talked about on the last podcast. And like you said, because you picked up on it, some of these tournaments, like the smaller orgs, you got to pay to enter, because that's how they make the money to host the event. So this just doesn't make sense. I got the feeling the father or the sensei or whatever is just pushing them to do this, because like you said, I think Tabuchi's amazing when he's on, but he looks drained in there, and he goes to war often, and the losses are racking up. I think he's 20 and 10 now off of this tournament. I think that's his kickboxing record. And when you go through and look at the 10 losses, these are guys that don't belong in the ring with him. I think he's just exhausted and beat up already. Like I said, I think he wears the pants in the ring to hide the welt still on his legs. If you're doing a full contact tournament like Zendokai a week before, there's no way the leg kicks have healed. Anyone who's fought knows that. Like, you're still going to have welts on your legs. 10 days? Or not even. I think it was 6. There's no way it went away. So I don't understand what's happening, and I really don't think it's good.
Yeah, so that whole thing is pretty weird and inexplicable, but we do have another karate signing with Rise announced a few hours ago. I don't know a lot about this guy except what the Japanese media can tell me, which is usually a load of stupid shit. But in this case, so they call him Tenshin's boyhood karate rival. And then when you look at the detail of that, he's like 6-2 against Tenshin and was twice his size by the end of this supposed rivalry. So let's go. What can you tell me?
Yeah, that's true. He slapped the shit out of Tenshin multiple times. Weren't very competitive fights most of the time. He was bigger than him. He's a middleweight now, or was when he was competing in karate. This one took me by huge surprise. Typically, I can get a feel of who would be willing to cross over. I know there's tons. Like, half the champions in the kickboxing orgs in Japan are former knockdown karateka. So I think people get the feeling that it's like a feeder thing, like you start in karate and then move to kickboxing, but like 80%, 90% never leave the organizations, especially if they do well. Typically, I've noticed a trend if they enter the weight tournaments and it takes them 3 or 4 tries to get a weight title, and then they make an attempt at an open tournament and they just get eviscerated, they tend to transition over. It's just a trend that I and some other guys that work on my YouTube channel that I talk to have noticed. But Kenta Nanbara, I would have never guessed in a million years that that would be him. So a lot of the guys who transition over are like high school champs or won a couple weight titles, and like it was clear that they were heading in that direction. Didn't do well in the open tournaments. In his case, he was like the star. He was supposed to be the next big thing. So he comes from the same squad, the same dojo as Yuta Takahashi and Chihiro Nakajima. They kind of grew up together. They're really good friends, or they were. And he was on every magazine, like Karate World magazine and the official Kyokushin Kaiken, monthly issue. He was all over that. I think he was had a bunch of high school championships. He, embarrassed Tenshin in the karate leagues. So he was pushed as like, this guy is going to be the next thing. This is the next, Shohei Kamada, whatever. He's going to replace the next generation on the Japanese national team. And he did pretty good in the weight titles. When he entered the 11th World Open, he was only 17, though. So I think it was a bit young. But anyway, he basically didn't get anywhere. I think he got eliminated in the second round. He didn't get knocked out, but he just got outpaced. He entered a few more tournaments after that. I think the 32nd, 33rd All Japan weight didn't win, didn't do much there. And then he entered another open tournament and lost in the first round. And he basically just disappeared. So for a while, the organization itself was pushing him hard as the next guy. And then very suddenly, he just fell off the map. I want to say 2018. Around that time. And I just never heard from him again. I'd almost thought he had quit karate and just decided, screw this, I'll go be a salaryman and make more money or something. Maybe went to university. And I was just talking with somebody, Ichigeki X Edge, a guy on Instagram that I'm always talking to, who's very, very big into the European and American scene for karate and follows it like I do. And we're saying, hey, remember that guy they pushed and went nowhere? We're sort of talking about one-hit wonders in the org. And then not 10 hours later, boom, he's coming to Rise. And I was like, what the fuck? He fell off the map for like 3 years and lands in Rise after failing the open weight. Like, with how much they pushed him and how much the org clearly adored him, I'm surprised, very surprised that he would leave. Yeah, that's
So
crazy
is
to me.
there like any, I mean, I didn't really check in any great detail. Like, is he with a kickboxing gym like full time? Is he still at a karate school? Like, because it sounds like the skill ceiling is a lot higher than a high school champ or whatever. But also, it's kind of a weird time to make that move, like after a career that didn't pan out. So if he's the same like age as Tenshin, that's not unheard of. But you get guys like obviously much lower level, like Naoki Yamamoto. I think he turned pro when he was like 24. But it seems like a tough road.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because I don't want to make the comparison because it's not fair. He didn't get blasted out every 2 seconds. But for lack of a better analogy right now, he was our Taiga that was pushed as the next guy and then just went nowhere. And most of his losses were by decision. He wasn't getting sent into the bleachers or embarrassing himself. He would just lose sort of nothing decisions, just got punched more than he punched, nothing to write home about, and just kind of fizzled out after a huge push from the orgs. And I'm sure even with how poorly he did, with how much they clearly loved him, they would have given him a very cushy teaching job in some huge branch. So maybe he just wasn't satisfied. with the fact that, he didn't make it, wants to make a run of it in kickboxing. There's certainly a lot of influence for that, right? With Ideal Gym and all those guys. I did see him training with them after the fact. Ichigeki X Edge told me that he had seen him there and sent me the video. I wasn't aware of that, or else I wouldn't have been so blindsided by it. But on the official thing, it's still on the official page. It still registers him as his gym as just the Kyokushin Kaiken. So seemingly he's still getting sponsored and supported by them the way Bei Noah is. So he may have just come to them and said, "Look, I'm clearly like it's not going well for me in the tournament scene. Would you guys be okay with me joining, the other guys going that way towards kickboxing?" I'm gonna have to do some digging on this and come back to it next podcast because this really caught me off guard, and this is a weird one. You can usually see it coming when they cross over, and this one seems to have come out of nowhere.
I mean, what's especially weird about it as well is he's what, 85 kg? It's not exactly a weight class in Japanese kickboxing that has a lot of room to maneuver. And in Rise, he's got like what, Brian?
Yeah, he doesn't have that many. It is a weird weight class because I think it causes problems for some of them when they cross over because the inclination is the tournaments that really matter in karate are open weight. So even if it's not your natural weight, it's better to bulk up a bit just so you don't get pushed around so much, at least in crashing in close. You're not getting pushed off the mat. So they tend to put on dead weight. Sort of, you've seen Chihiro Nakajima was 200 pounds at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you saw the massive weight loss he had. I believe Nambara always fought at middleweight, and for us that's 80 kg on the dot. Even in the open tournaments, it didn't seem like he dirty bulked or anything like that. He seemed to come in the exact same weight. So it's 70, 80, 90, and then 100 plus. Those are the weight classes. There's giant gaps in between. So when you're in those weird weight categories, when you come to kickboxing where it's like 67.5 and all this made up bullshit, I think they have a hard time fitting into these molds. And I think he's one of them where he's 80 kg, but probably walks around closer to, 85, 90 maybe. So he's just going to be stuck in this one unless he wants to try to cut massive weight. And you're right, there's pretty much nobody in that division, at least in Rise.
Yeah, so we'll be interested to see how he does and how imminently he's staring across the ring from Brian. So, yeah, anyway, so we go from things that we like and things that we are interested in to the bad news, which is bad news which comes quite frequently these days. The K1 Fukuoka show took a blow recently since Power of Dreams seems to have had some COVID contact and need to quarantine. So now instead of Egawa versus Chain Guy, we get Chain Guy versus Maki Dwansampong in an exhibition that literally nobody cares about. So we've gone from a, maybe 3, maybe 2 fight card to a 2, maybe 1 fight card. So, yeah, there's just kind of a lack of imagination on this card in the first place. It's like lots of locals versus the small rotation of guys that they've been booking in the COVID era. I don't want to spend too long complaining about it, but I would like to laser focus some of my complaining. So the first thing is, like, I was looking up and down the card, and I was like, this looks a bit familiar. Is this... So, Knuckle Miho versus this girl, Mari, because it was close the first time, I guess now we have to have an immediate rematch. Like, this was their last fight against each other, also pretty sure in Fukuoka. So, I don't know, man. It's pretty stupid. But the crowning piece of stupidity is, I mean, I talked about this a little bit last time, but I also then after that went and looked at the fights to see, like, is there any possible justification to this? And it's worse than I thought. So we have Koya Urabe versus Fumiya Osawa 4. So just to break down this rivalry a little bit, like rivalry in quotes, put this in perspective. Koya is leading this so far trilogy 2 fights to 1. So he knocked him out the first time they met. And then the second time, the one that he lost, he also knocked him out. He got disqualified for knocking him out at the wrong time. And then they had a third fight, which Koya also won. And now Fumio Osawa is like, he's so done. He's getting dropped constantly. Like he did who was the Chinese guy he fought? I don't remember. But anyway, I think he won that by DQ as well and gave like a mic performance while laying on the floor. Yeah, he's just not good. And, the only possible way he can win this is if Koya is as brutally unmotivated as his brother and comes in 10 pounds overweight and has only been practicing kicks to the balls for the last like 8 weeks. It's really bad.
I don't appreciate that diss. Kicking to the balls is true, proper karate, okay? It's not Urabe's fault. He went back and opened up a karate school, so he was just used to teaching real self-defense. You can't blame him for that. Nuts are a good target. But on the Osawa thing, I actually didn't realize that they had fought 3 times. I think I saw the last 2. I didn't realize that this is going into a fourth fight with him having won none of them. I sort of make sense now why he was hoarding so much cash in his house. He has to pay Urabe once a month when he comes by, like a debt collector, in order to keep him away. And because the money was stolen, he has to fight him again. So that'll be some more lost brain cells. I have nothing else to add to that.
Yeah. So with that out of the way, there are a couple of things that I like. Hiromi Wajima versus the Himalayan cheetah. Wajima is, I think, probably the most well-rounded guy at the weight class. And, to be clear, not the best weight class in Japan by a long shot. But if you look at what he can do, he hurts people with punches, kicks upstairs, downstairs, knees. He's got a versatility that most 70 kg fighters in Japan do not. Abiral, I love him. He had that really weird, great, crazy, stupid fight with Philip. He's raw, but like he was in high school at the time in his third language. He's cool. We saw him get dropped a couple times, but he's also incredibly tough, seemingly slightly crazy. And I think honestly, in terms of a competitive high-level fight, this is probably the best that K1 can do in this division, and I'm looking forward to it. But I also, because I know you enjoy a bit of Philip slander, he Abural posted and then seemingly deleted, but he's calling Philip out constantly. He wants that fight, and Philip seems to have his sights set on something else. Like he looks like he's losing weight. He seems to have no interest in fighting at the moment. So I don't know what's going on there, whether he's the next guy that says, I'm not a kickboxer anymore, but he's deleted almost all of his YouTube videos except the ones that can make him money. So I don't think he's, making that step. I think he might just be leaving because suddenly there's 2 guys that can maybe compete, and seems the time for getting out is now.
Yeah, I would say you mentioned that Abiral got dropped a few times, but it's worth remembering that Minoru hits like a freight train full of horse meat from the unrestricted area, if you know what I mean. So I don't think that says much about his chin other than it's very good, because in his other fights he hasn't been dropped.
I have to be clear. I think his chin is clearly amazing. It's just that he's pretty raw. Like one of the times he got dropped, I think, was from throwing like the Sina Karimian style spinning back fist and then just immediately running face first into like a punch. But he's still,
You mean the cruiserweight move, TM?
The unbeatable cruiserweight technique. But
can defend.
I really like the guy, and I think now that he's not going to be a full-time student, I think the sky is the limit for him. The sky, insofar as the sky reaches at 70 kg in Japan, which is not that high, but it is very fun a lot of the time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So there's another sort of higher weight fight, just one weight division below this. Kind of curious what Rukia is going to look like at a new weight class. He's just come back from surgery, having a bone graft from his hip to his fist. Apparently, he's had like really long standing injuries that have just never healed up. And he's fighting a guy that I know absolutely nothing about except that he helped the other Fumiya keep his endless KO streak alive by knocking him out in about 60 seconds. So I know he can punch hard, and that's about it. So, I mean, you can't craft a compelling narrative about what might happen in this fight, but you can say that one guy is generally pretty entertaining. The other guy has punched one guy very hard, so maybe it'll be fun. Uh, and then there's the main event, which I really don't know what's going to happen. Taiyo kind of looked sensational since moving up, but I mean, he also had the slight scare that against Hiroki, a guy who, to be clear, he completely outclassed, knocked out in horrific fashion, just sort of unexpectedly managed to drop him with a flying knee. Gangnapa has, a smaller bag of tricks, but everything he does extremely well. He's got power in his hands and his legs. He's beaten good opposition like Rukia, Kenta Hayashi, but he's also not invincible. He had that loss to Yuto Shinohara a few years back. So, I mean, when you look at this, I know you're not the biggest Muay Thai guy fan. What's your pick? What do you think is going to happen?
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot to break down on this. I would like to just start a little bit with Taiyo. I don't mean this in the disparaging way, because I think it's used mostly disparaging. I just use it for lack of a better term. There's a lot of bandwagoners for Taiyo that have come recently that haven't sort of followed his career. I don't mean any disrespect by that. I think it's great that he's getting noticed and getting new fans. But I think it's important to look back on his career, because if you only started following him recently because of his appearances in K1 and not Krush, you're going to get a very warped view of who he is and what he's capable of. So his father pushed him really hard to go fight pro very young, both of them. So I remember you said on Twitter once that you didn't quite understand the hype from him at first because he had such an uneven record in Crush. But that was a fair opinion to have. It was because I'd watched him sort of in his karate career that I knew the trajectory of where he was going, but he was very raw when he started. But his father basically had the idea of experience now. Sure, you might pick up a few losses, but it'll pay off later when you hit your prime early. I'm not going to say for kickboxing because I don't feel I'm qualified to say when most hit their prime there. But certainly in karate, you can expect to hit your true prime, like the best you'll ever be, from like 25 maybe until about 28 are probably your absolute best years. Some guys, even like Eremenko, hit it at 30. But in any case, it's important to remember Taiyo is 22 and he already looks like he's in his prime and just completely changed. So he was a decision fighter for a long time. He never had knockout power. If you look at his old Crush record, and even in China, he has very few downs. He would like very technical fight his way to decision wins.
Yeah, so I knew that, and I was like just floored in the same way that Kenta Hayashi did, or was, sorry, when, he puts on like 5 pounds by not cutting extra weight, and suddenly he's just destroying people.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of his developments. When he started destroying people, he was finally hitting his 20s. When he wasn't putting people away, he was still a teenager fighting in Crush. That's the point I'm trying to get at, is his father had this from the beginning as the roadmap. Get him a lot of experience in karate, get him fighting pro very young and early. And sure, if he picks up a few losses along the way, that's okay. It'll pay off later. And we're seeing it pay off as he's hitting his prime much earlier than most people because he's already been doing this for a while. So his knockout power, I think he's finding it now. He was super technical and he could hit the right place, but he'd always pull it back a little bit because he's defensive focused. He's now starting to find his power. Like the way he went after his last opponent, I've not seen him do, just swinging. usually even if he hurts him, he kind of lets his foot off the gas sometimes. He's really embraced it now. He's finding his confidence as an adult. I think it's great, but I just think it's important to bring that up so you get a better idea of him. I think it's also important to remember that, he fought a can't say that word kind of guy in his last fight who was 9-9 in said fighting. So it's easy to look like a world beater when you're fighting somebody like that. The real one to look at, I think, is like you said, it's Hayashi, and how on a week's notice, put him in the morgue, basically broke his jaw, dropped him with a switch kick. I think it's better to compare that fight and Gonapar's last fight with Hayashi than the ones around it, because Hiroki and the guy with the word I won't say are not, like you said, they're not great opponents. So it's easy to look really good against them. So I think that's important to keep in mind in the first place.
Yeah. So the other thing I would say, like his I mean, you call it an uneven record. Like two of those losses were to Leona Pettis. And he got dropped in both of them, but he did not look bad or particularly like outclassed. He just got unlucky in that, Leona throws a punch followed by 12 punches followed by 12 more, and he just like got him in the insanity of it, and he wasn't ready for that. But he acquitted himself very well. And one of the things that I would say is particularly the second fight with Leona. I think if that was 5 rounds, he probably would have won. And obviously this is not 5 rounds, but he's diligent about attacking multiple targets. He really chewed up Leona's lead leg. I think, he's mobile in a way that some of the people that Gangnapa has beaten the shit out of in the past are not. I think, my gut feeling is he can probably avoid getting crowded in and bludgeoned like Rukia, and he's generally like active, and the same way that his brother outworked Chain Guy, I think he can outwork him also. But I don't know, just like you can't have the kind of lapse that he had against Hiroki against Gangnapa. He hits too hard and he's too good, even if the bag of tricks that he reaches into is not as deep as Taiyo. He's very dangerous. So it's, an interesting dynamic. I really don't know which way to call it, because every time I felt that Gangnapa is going to lose, he wins and makes me look stupid. So, yeah, I think it's a good fight, and I have no idea what's going to happen. But yeah, like you said, Taiyo is still like early 20s. He's looking better and better each fight, couched in the terms of fighting guys like Hiroki and Hasumi. But his training, I mean, you've mentioned that you're like really high on the methods that his dad uses, and they released a video, and he trains like 8 hours a day. And when you hear that, you think like, wow, that's too much. But it's not like, Crest, like 8 hours of sparring and like drain your brain out of your ear at the end of the day. They do a lot of like pretty unusual, interesting stuff. So can you enlighten me about like what some of this stuff is for? So it seems like every now and then, just for no real reason, they have guys preparing to get on weight. Even guys that aren't like fighting professionally at the moment do this. It's a real interesting looking gym.
Yeah, so the Asahisas are just steeped in tradition. Like everything goes back to the origins of Kyokushin karate. And Nicholas Pettis talked about it a lot. One of the big things that surprised him is when he was training as an uchideshi under Masoyama in Tokyo, they would train 8 hours a day. It was a full day every day. And when he went to, I think it was Golden Glory. I apologize if I got the gym wrong, but he went for a while to train in Holland, and they would only do like 45-minute training sessions, but they would just go hard on the pads or go really, really hard in sparring. And like you said, empty each other's brains out. And Nick found that extremely odd and different from the way he had been raised to train. It's always like hyper specific things. So it wouldn't be like sparring 8 hours a day, like you said. There's a lot of other martial arts that get incorporated into Kyokushin from tradition. And you see the Asahisas doing this as well. Like they do some sumo training, mostly for balance and for when you're in this sort of in the crash, we call it, when you can't clinch in most Kyokushin organizations. So what you do is when you get that really close, tight feeling, you kind of go forearm to forearm. And this is where Noiri learned how to do this and why he's so good at it. You spend a lot of time forearm to forearm and not being able to grab, and that's literally where he learned to be so deadly there. And you can forearm to forearm and sort of try to push and maneuver their arm where you want to open up an attack, or you can push them back. So that's where the sumo training comes into play. It's kind of an extension of clinch work for us, is a way to crash. You throw a big knee jumping in, and then you use that sort of sumo crash to push them back rather than stay in the clinch to get them away from you. They do that. Another common thing that Kyokushin guys do is shot put. I've seen the Asahisas doing that. They do a lot of shot put. The method and thinking behind that is just simply punching strength, basically. Just build up the same sort of movement and arm that a punch comes from. Also pushing cars and or trucks while they're in neutral. That, I think, is self-explanatory, really builds up pretty much everything. So they do kind of all-rounded training. And the thing I like the most is when they spar, they do very, very tactical sparring, picking their shots. They're not trying to cave each other's heads in. They're just looking to move a lot and find angles and stuff. And you see that play out with how hyper-technical Taiyo is. So I think all that stuff is great. He does some more unorthodox things too, which I haven't seen that much of, like holding his breath underwater.
Yeah, I was going to ask, the P-tub really grabbed my imagination. We as, I say we, I'm not a kickboxer, but it's clear to me that kickboxers and kickboxers can simply drink more piss.
Well, okay, so one thing I want to say on that is if you've ever lived in Japan, you know that unlike in the West, where we typically always drain out our bathtub, a lot of Japanese people will keep the water, and there's actually like a reheating mechanism on their bathtubs there. So a lot of them will reuse it. So I imagine it's just that, and that sort of gets like a greenish color sometimes. It didn't look quite pee to me, but I mean, dogs are colorblind, so I don't blame you for that. But my thought on that is I've seen a few guys who were uchideshi before. They would wear snorkels while hitting the bag, and the idea was just that lung capacity and just recovery rate and stuff like that. When you come up from air, you're gasping. It's sort of how fast can you get your heart rate back to normal, and how long can you keep your heart rate at that crazy pace. That would be my only thought on the holding your breath thing. That's definitely more unorthodox. Something else I want to point out about the fight, I kind of laid the groundwork on my opinion with his record in the past and how he's just finding his power. I think the fact that he relied on decisions and being hyper technical and seeing what he was capable in the karate world of doing, and now that he's found his power after the fact, I think these are coming together really well. I think Gonapar does really well against guys that'll stand right in front of him and trade and allow him to just bomb middle kicks the way a Hayashi would. And you saw how they clashed. But I see Taiyo fighting him the same way he fought Hayashi, where he's on the outside, front kicking him in the face, just moving out of the way of these bombs. He's not going to stand there and trade, and he's got much better footwork. Gonapar it's weird. I feel like people underestimate him sometimes, but if you look at his record, it is immaculate. Like he's not always that impressive, but he always seems to manage to just pull a decision out. And I said, you can get very conflicting ideas if you watch how much of a destroyer Taiyo's looked against not great opponents lately, and look at Gonapar's terrible performance against Kaneko. Kaneko almost dropped him, which is absurd. That was honestly pathetic. But I also assume he came in hyper unmotivated for that. And I think it's better to compare both Hayashi fights.
Yeah, so I mean that fight is particularly weird. So I'm pretty sure his plan after winning the belt was not to fight at all for like 100 days to honor his recently passed father or something. And I think this was maybe just outside of that range and was like decided on short notice. And obviously, it's a guy that does not and should not pose any problems for him. So, I mean, there was no way other than, just knocking him out in 10 seconds that he was going to look, come out of this looking any better than he is. So, I mean, yeah, I don't want to draw too many conclusions from that fight in particular, but yeah, weird situation all around.
That's sort of what I mean is I don't think you can draw much from that, and I don't think you can draw much from the Hiroki or I'm sorry, the MMA guy's name escapes me.
Hasumi.
That's Hasumi, thank you. That Tayo destroyed. I think the fight to look at is the Hayashi one that they both had recently, and I think that's a good indicator. Gunapar is still looking good. I mean, he's only 28. I know that's old for a Thai, but he still looks good to me. I don't think this is a gimme. I see a lot of the timeline writing this off as like Tayo's going to win, and I think they're being lulled into that by how good he's looked against not great competition. I believe Tayo's style can lead him to victory, and I'm edging it to Tayo, and obviously I'm never going to root against him because I love that kid, but it would not be a giant shock to me if Gunapar pulled out a decision win. It's going to be a very good fight, and it's going to show where both of them are. I think this is the best fight to make in that division, so I think it's going to be close, but I'm edging Tayo because I don't think he's going to stand in front of Gunapar and let him tee off and get his range the way Hayashi did.
Yeah, so can't wait to see it. I haven't checked Gongnapa's record in a while, but off the top of my head, he had a 2 knockdown loss to Yuto Shinohara, and other than that, the only guy that I know that he's lost to was Hiramoto, which is, a long time ago, and obviously nothing to be ashamed of. So, like you said, this is probably the best fight you could make at this weight, but they are also determined to make the worst fights you can make at this weight because the next Krush show has just an abominably bad tournament at this weight class. But it also has a very short, very cruel cruiserweight field. I don't think there's a lot to talk about on that card. But one side of the bracket, Hitoshi Sugimoto, half-decent athlete. He's better than most Japanese cruiserweights, but has not been very active. I think he's fought like maybe once a year. He lost to Keiji a while back. He's fighting against your good friend, Seiya Tanigawa. On the other side of the bracket is Rui, who miraculously managed not to get knocked out by Tanigawa last time out. He's got possibly the worst chin in the division. It's like quite worrying when you see him just get wobbled and like fall over from nothing punches. They just released the VTR for this fight a couple hours ago. His face is all marked up. He looks like he's had the crap beaten out of him already. He's lost to both of the guys on the other side of the bracket, and he's going to lose against Mahmoud Satari, and he's going to lose badly within about 60 seconds. So the question for you is, do you think Tanigawa can do any better than he did last time against Satari? I mean, there's questions about Satari. So he's a good athlete in a way that cruiserweights just generally are not. But there's a style to fighting tournaments, and if Rui like miraculously stays on his feet, I don't know. I really want to see what this guy actually has outside of throwing bombs at guys that are just not on his level.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts about this tournament. I don't hate it as much as you do, but mostly because I realize this is the best they got. I mean, this is half the cruiserweight division. There's barely anybody in it. So Satari, man, that guy is scary. I talked to a good friend of mine who still lives in Iran if he had seen any of like his amateur fights, and I guess he has quite the reputation as a great fighter back there too. When I see him launch that middle kick, I mean, I've seen photos you sent me of him doing the splits and training on the bag. That thing's got to be a violation of the Iranian nuclear deal. That thing is fucking vicious. And, like you said, he scalped his last couple opponents. Rui stands no chance. I'm not as polite as you. Rui is bad. He should reconsider this whole ordeal while he still has brain cells left. He should quit and get a job somewhere else. I don't mean to be like so mean about it, but he's shown no improvements since he started. I mean, he was at Purge, which is the worst gym ever, with
So
people.
I have to cut you off. You say Purge is the worst gym ever. You know where he trains right now?
Where?
K1 Gym Fukuoka with KG.
Uh, I'm gonna hold the line and say that Purge is still worse because it's not even really a gym. They're just like social media influencers hanging out and taking pictures of each other's Yoko Ono wives. But I definitely think Satari is gonna kill him. It's gonna be ugly. Like you said, maybe because Rui showed some durability against Tanigawa, maybe he can absorb enough shots to tire him out. But like you said, Satari is just he's actually a cruiserweight. The other guys strike me as dirty bulkers, like I was talking about from karate, where they just got up to this weight for some reason and are just refusing to cut because they seem to have a lot of fat on them that
Yeah.
they could burn if they really wanted to. My other thoughts on the other side of the bracket is a much more competitive fight, I think. Tanigawa has been improving for his background. So he came from the knockdown world and he was in it for quite a while. He was okay. He was decent. He fought in the weight tournaments mostly. I think he had a fourth place in the Kyokushin Kaikan once out of his 4 or 5 attempts. It's worth it to remember that he comes from Seido Kaiken, and they just have a friendly relationship with the Kyokushin Kaiken, so they let them enter, unlike the other orgs. And so I think he was a champion in Seido Kaiken, but Seido Kaiken, since their founder went to prison and lost K1 and all that nonsense that we've talked about before, is a very, very small organization at this point. And I believe their last champion when they did a weight tournament was Masanori Tanoka. And I believe he was 43 when he won it. And he's also fought in and not done well at all. He's not amazing. I don't mean to throw shade at these guys. Obviously, anyone who can get to that level is way better than me. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not good. So Tanigawa has a title, I think, in Seido Kaiken, but it's not that impressive at that weight specifically. But even so, in kickboxing, he's shown a lot. He has a brutal switch kick KO. He did pretty good in the Hoost Cup organization. He's getting better. His hands are improving. He has a really bad habit that's got him in trouble last time he fought Satari of when he throws spinning kicks, he sort of leads with his head. Instead of sort of keeping leaned back until it comes all the way around, he tends to throw his weight into it. So he kind of throws his head right into a counter. But he seems to be improving. He looked really good against Rui. I think he can win in the first round, and then he'll inevitably fight Satari. My thought on that is I don't know if he could have advanced enough in, the year it's been to beat Satari unless the bracket plays out in his favor. I would pick Satari to win the whole thing, with the caveat of Tanigawa has a lot of experience fighting in tournaments, and 2 fights in one night will be nothing to him. Coming from Seido Kaiken, they usually have like 6-fight tournaments to make it to the finals in one day. They don't break it up into 2 days like the other organizations. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this is his best chance to beat Satari when it's in tournament format. If he fought him one-on-one, I wouldn't think he could beat him. But he might get favorable brackets or be able to use the fact that he's just more used to this than Satari is. But I would expect Satari to win unless something happens in the way the brackets play out.
Yeah, I mean, 2 things to point out about everything you just said. One is, I mean, simply due to the fact that Rui has lost to these other 2 already, making this bracket as it is right now just favors Satari inherently because he's the hardest hitting guy against the guy with the worst chin. But also, you mentioned a 43-year-old karate guy, and that brings up the reserve fight, which has the mid-40s karate guy with the 19-year-old boy haircut. So I hope for his sake he does not get called upon. But yeah, outside of this cruiserweight tournament, they have like a really, really, really bad 62.5 kg first round of a tournament with the crotch guy, the babyface Lawe dude, and a bunch of other guys that just really Yeah, whoever wins between Gongapa and Tayo really did not have to worry about a challenger coming from Crush at this point.
No, not even remotely. I mean, to be honest, I can't add much to this. I sort of looked over the details and checked their records. I mean, I knew most of them, but some I didn't, and I just sighed.
Yeah, like I
The
saw when it
last
was
note I want to
announced, it was like, oh man, that sucks. And then I didn't realize until like I looked up the card for this that, oh, this is that show.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and it's not great. I like the cruiserweight one more, and again, I
Oh, a
don't hate
lot
it as
more.
much as you do. Just because I realize this is all they got to work with. And I want to say for the record, I actually really like Seiya Tanigawa, despite his average karate career. I think in the cruiserweight with how diverse his attacking game is, he can go far. I just think Satari is just he needs another year at least to be ready for a guy like Satari on that level. But and on the other tournament, I almost don't even understand the point of doing these crush tournaments because I still see crush and maybe K1's trying to angle it differently as the sort of feeder org for K1 or to keep guys busy. I don't quite understand why you need to have these K1 style tournaments in crush. I feel like it's just not the org for that.
Yeah, I mean, for cruiserweight, it kind of makes sense. Like KG vacated the belt. There is a limited number of people. Get it all out of the way in one night. But like this other tournament, whoever wins, nobody's gonna it's not gonna be a breakout moment for anyone. It's gonna be okay, a bunch of mid card guys fought each other, and one guy came out on top, and maybe he gets like a main event slot still in Crush at some point. But I don't know, maybe someone surprises me. Who knows? But the only other thing, so also this weekend, with English commentary, if you want to pay the money for it, there is this Rise World Series tournament. So I thought that the Rise World Series stuff was going to be the best thing in kickboxing until COVID hit. It's still very, very good. This one, K1 just had their 53 kg tournament, had a lot of prospects in it. This one is a lot of pretty well established guys, and the weight this is at necessitates that a lot of that experience had to come in Thailand. So I know you're not going to be too much of a fan of a lot of these guys' styles, but just to quickly take a look at the field. So we have Kazuki Osaki versus Issei Ishii, owner of perhaps the best nickname in kickboxing, the Sunrise Prince. Obviously, two Muay Thai guys, very, very skilled. Issei Ishii been around quite a while. Kazuki Osaki pretty recently, like focusing on kickboxing, probably as a result of global events, but really, really good high level fight. The one that I'm most interested in, and I think probably the only guy who I think explicitly has a karate background is Kodai versus Shiro. Shiro is a pretty known quantity, but now he's going down to 53. But Kodai is interesting because he's basically exclusively been in the Osaka circuit. He's fought and beat important guys in this Rise division like Koki Osaki, Jin Mandakoro, but he also, early on in his career, he knocked out Masashi Kumura with a head kick while wearing shoot boxing pants. And as far as I'm aware, there is no video of this, so I'm going to watch the VTR very closely in case there is. Like sometimes this stuff is just locked away on someone's hard drive. But we have here a guy who says his background is karate with a knockout win over one of the best people at the division above this against a guy who is also one of the best people at the division above this. So that's pretty interesting. Anyone in this tournament you care about, or should I carry on?
Well, I have something to say about Kodai versus Shiro. I think it's a really good fight, and I think whoever wins that will probably win the tournament, in my opinion. I really like Shiro a lot. I like the way he fights. People might find it boring, but I find the way he stifles people's game and make them fight the way he wants to is a talent. I think it's very hard to do, not to get swept up I mean, he even did it to Tension. He didn't let
Yeah,
Tension
like
fight at
I
his
know
pace.
a lot of people complained about that, but like he didn't go in there to lay down. He didn't just run away, but he also didn't take like risks. And I guess that's kind of the cornerstone of his style is he's not going to go out there and go crazy, but he I mean his fight against Masahiko Suzuki, who one is one of the best 55 kg people in the world, but two is also the most exciting. Not only did he beat him, he dropped him. Also, last year, Shiro had the fastest knockout of the year, as far as I'm aware, in kickboxing. So he's kind of, he can do this stuff and he can do it extremely well. And I think, because often there is not a lot of drama in his fights, people don't really see that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And how many people can you think of that were able to stop Tension from imposing his will? Like you could see Tension was pissed off. He was visibly annoyed during that last fight with Shiro. I think that's a talent. There's one thing to run away and be a boring fighter, and there's another way to stifle your opponent. I think is different, and that's what he has. Kodai, like you said, has some big knockouts. He does come from the karate world. He has a decent resume there. Nothing amazing to write home about in terms of like an open title or something like that. But at that sort of high school level or like weight title level, he was pretty good. And I think it's like you said, he did fight at a higher weight. He has a big win over people in the higher division, so he is moving down. I actually think his weight cut's going to be kind of rough, to be honest. If I'm remembering right from when he was fighting in karate, he was a bit heavier than this. So hopefully he doesn't have any problems with the weight cut. So I think him versus Shiro is the most interesting one because he's going to come like a bat out of hell, and Shiro is going to try to take his pace away. And I like Shiro to win the whole thing. That's my pick. But that's the fight to watch, in my opinion. I think whoever wins between them will take the tournament, but we'll see. I know Ozaki pretty well, but I don't know the other people in the tournament that well. So I could be missing a key player that others might know more about.
Okay, so there is a key player. So the next bout is Matsuki Ebata versus Kazane, who I think I've maybe seen fight once, but the important thing you need to know about him is he is in the tournament and he is the Team Teppen guy. And this is Rise.
I take back my pick. Can I change my pick now? Can I pick the Team Teppen guy?
Sorry, you're locked in.
Ah, fuck. Come on, why even have the tournament? That's what I don't understand. Just give him the fucking belt.
Yeah, so the other one is Jin Mandakoro versus former champ Toki Tamaru. I think really highly of Tamaru. He fought Masahiko Suzuki at 54 kg, like Tamaru was the 53 kg champion. Suzuki was the 55 kg champion. They met in the middle. He gave him a hell of a fight. And I think honestly, if the Osakis weren't in Rise, I think he'd still be the champ. So I think overall, really, really solid, really strong tournament. Probably, I don't know if it's going to have the drama that the K1 53 kg GP did with one guy winning by a bunch of knockouts, but
Is it one night? One night tournament?
no, so they have the much more sane format. This is the opening round, and then the next one is two fights in one night later
I
in the
see.
year.
Okay.
So I think really that is necessary when you have people at this level, and I'm really looking forward to this. But there are a couple of things on this card that I am not looking forward to. So Masahiko Suzuki, who I'm constantly kissing his ass. I think he's great. There's a portion of this card that is almost certainly booked by Abema. He's fighting an old retired boxer outside of his weight class. You remember when Tenshin did the thing where it was like a sparring exhibition, and if you beat him, you win 1,000,000 yen or whatever? Well,
Yes.
it's one of those guys. He's like a Thai guy that is a boxing trainer at a gym for mostly, it seems, for Instagram women. Not terribly excited by this. Also, yeah, there's Taiga versus Kan Nakamura. Taiga, I mentioned that he's left his gym, went to Team Dragon for this. Nakamura was looking promising, and then during the like weird lockdown shows, he fought like way outside of his weight class, lost a decision to I forget who. But anyway, and then after that has continued to have like pretty serious weight problems. He couldn't make weight for a guy again by the name of Sato, who trains with Leona, and they just gave Sato the win. Like he lost the fight on the scale. Um, so Taiga versus a guy who has severe weight problems. The questions are: one, does Nakamura make weight? Two, does Taiga stay in the ring? Not the most compelling bout, but Taiga, for all that I make fun of him, actually a good fighter, uh, and can be in compelling life and death battles against guys that he should not be in compelling life and death battles against. So there's that. I think that's going to be fun. I think it probably gives you an opportunity to laugh at Taiga, which I think you'll take that opportunity anytime. Yeah, outside of that, there is like some of this open finger glove nonsense that I don't care about. But also, Suzuka Tabuchi, also on this card, also probably can be found fighting in like rec halls within a 3 mile radius of the arena over the next few days. Anything else on this card grab you?
Um, Not really. I mean, obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing Tabuchi fight always. She also just fought in that Zendokai tournament, so not happy about her turnaround either. She fights just as often as her brother. It's a little too much, in my opinion. I wish they would give her some time to breathe because I think she's really good and should have beat Manazo pretty easily, probably just due to the insane schedule that I don't know if she's being forced to or what the hell's going on with that, but she also has that insane pace. I would just, I guess it just flabbergasts me. I don't know if the Japanese fan really loved the exhibitions because I thought it was bad enough. Like it's insult enough that Igal was out because somebody was breathing too hard in the treehouse. But then you subject me to round kick bowl cut, man, and it's not even a real fight. I got to watch him in an exhibition.
Yeah, like
And then there's this,
I mean, I
and then
guess
now there's
these
this
guys
boxing one.
trained and they want to at least go to the ring, but just for real, like do what
Just cancel it.
yeah, do like a pad exhibition. Like nobody wants to see these two guys in particular.
I guess I just don't understand the trend of having these exhibitions, or if it's a canceled fight, doing an exhibition instead. For me as a fan, I would much rather they just take that fight off the card and just continue as is if they can't get a replacement. Because I don't think it adds anything to watch, especially because that guy's coming in last minute. It's not going to exactly be an amazing exhibition. I don't know. I don't know if the Japanese fans love it and that's why they do it, or if there's something in the ratings that they notice because
No,
it's
so
just stupid
just
to
to,
me.
to clear that up, so the other Power of Dream guy was going to be fighting the bowl cut guy. So it's literally just that there are two guys that had their fights canceled. So, you know, like the weight is different between each of them. It's the whole thing is just stupid.
Oh man, I'm not looking forward to that. It's just going to be dead time.
No, I think it actively detracts from the quality of the card that you have to watch like two entrances, and I don't even know if it's like 2 minutes or two. Is it one round, 2 rounds? I don't care. Nobody else is gonna care. It's like it is just a weird. I mean, if you're gonna do this, please cancel the intermission.
No, I agree, and that's basically what I'm getting at is I feel like it takes away because now you got to wait through these stupid, pointless, totally pointless exhibitions waiting for the next fight to start. So to me, it would be a blessing if they just said, okay, it's canceled or rescheduled for the next event. I don't know who this is for.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. But I guess the silver lining is there is a card coming up in September, which now has its co-main event in Chain Guy and Egawa. I know that Hirotaka Asahisa wants to be on that card. I know they want Takeru on that card. I don't think his fist is ready, so I don't think that fight is going to happen. But there's at least one fight that you can guarantee is going to be on that card, and it was supposed to be on this one, but yeah, turns out people are coughing.
I would like to just say again that following the Asahisas as closely as I do, Hirotaka could have fought on this one. and it would have made perfect sense for him to. Again, I'm assuming they couldn't find an opponent because otherwise it doesn't make sense because he's on weight and ready to go. So I'm very disappointed we don't get both of them on the same card.
Yeah, I have to assume that as soon as Chain Guy heard that Egawa was out, he probably shit his pants again.
I mean, I would watch that again. That was fun. I don't know if he would.
I mean, yeah, it was great as long as you're not Chain Guy. So yeah, anyway, I think that is just about all of whatever's coming up in the pipeline, except for Glory, which they have a good card, but I don't know, man. We've already been talking like an hour and a half. I guess Badr Hari's gonna explode again. Whatever. Let's wrap up. Any plugs? Anything we should be watching?
Yeah, I'll shout out once again Kick to the Future on Twitter to see where the latest and greatest stars are coming from. If you'd watched and paid attention to Kick to the Future, you would have seen Musashi coming. That's all I'm saying, Dogman.
I was completely blind.
And the hashfighter.net as well does lots of long form interviews there, and it's a great site run by Combat Cat. You should check it out. I think it's amazing work. And yeah, that's all I got to shout out.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I can say is hi, Dogman from the future here. It wasn't the only thing I could say. In fact, as soon as I said that, my hard drive ran out of space and I could no longer record. So just watch Rise. You can pay for it. Fight TV, English commentary. Cool. See ya.